Okay, good morning. This is day 118 of making little videos to describe a day or thought in the life of Schizophrenic Dominic. I make these videos amidst the world going crazy on me and warring upon me and then telling everybody that I was diseased or crazy. I believe I experienced schizophrenia, but I believe it's a reality to be experienced and that I am not diseased or crazy. In day 17 of these videos, I describe why I call myself schizophrenic rather than targeted individual. In day 45, I express some amount of why I make these videos in the first place in a more detailed way as 3-minute intro. I have written a book on medium.com that I submit for free where you can read about my thought processes which could have gotten me targeted, as well as my experiences as being a targeted subject in an experimental program, and some research on voice hearing in the public domain and technology to cause that, as well as research on public documentation of the targeted individual program. Okay. So I was going to start off today talking about Cory Booker, and he did what would appear to me as a Nazi salute at the Democratic Convention, and I had expressed earlier in these videos that I actually think Cory Booker should have been president already, but after he did that Nazi salute, I don't know what that was about. And he doesn't have ideations which it would express outright Nazism, but he is part of a country that uh, brought Nazis into the intelligence structure post World War II, and he uh, is part of a party that I experienced. There's some amount, I do believe there is some amount of Nazism in the Democratic Party. I think there's a whole host of Nazism in the Republican Party. Uh, Now, if you go back into Nazi history or whatever, I learned this a little bit ago, and it was actually started as like a left-wing party, and then when Hitler came into it, there was a left wing element to the party, and Hitler purged all those people and murdered them, and so the party was purged before Hitler became chancellor, I believe. And if I have my history right, and so it's kind of interesting to think that like a left wing, Booker isn't even that left wing, but like he did the Nazi salute. Was he trying to call attention to Musk's Nazi salute? Or was he really saluting something? Or is he trying to push people into the democratic socialists? I don't know what the reasoning for him doing the Nazi salute was. I told you before in previous videos that I actually kind of liked Cory Booker, but now that he did that Nazi salute, he's down on my list of people I would vote for. Uh, I guess they're gonna deny that it was a Nazi salute, but I mean, you go like this, and it really looks like that's what you did. I think Laura Ingraham did a Nazi salute. I think Elon Musk did a Nazi salute, and Booker's was very much like a Nazi salute. So you're not gonna do something like that in front of my eyes and then tell me, oh, that's not, I'm not doing that. Now I hear with my mind that you talk a different game than a Nazi game, but like I say, Nazis could be like New Age Nazi, like National Socialist or something. And with all these things going on with you see what Biden did coming into office in his 80s and basically handing the keys over to Trump by being a incapacitated person in office. They didn't even run a primary to have somebody run against Trump. They just handed the government over to Trump basically. By putting Biden up as your candidate for 4 years, you were basically handing the candidacy to Trump. So that's suspicious activity by Democrats. And then now you have Cory Booker giving a Nazi salute. I'm sorry, but it's a little crazy. And so, I do know that history of like there being left wing beginning of the Nazi Party before they were all purged and it was moved towards a fascist bent. And so, uh, yeah. All right. So that was that. AOC came across as more likable than Republicans. All the leadership in the Republican Party, Donald Trump, she had a 46% favorability rating and approval rating and 44% unfavorable. So she had a 2% net positive, and everybody else was net negative, including Kamala and Biden. So that's a very interesting little poll. And like I say, I actually agree with AOC more than anybody in that's going to be running. But I'm not convinced. Even I saw that poll, and so that's nice. But like, I don't know what the polls mean when it comes down to elections. It doesn't really come to fruition a lot of times, So then you have to start wondering, why did the polls differ from the elections? And that's a whole can of worms that I won't go into, but I don't know. And so I guess sometimes I don't know. It's just kind of weird. If I like favorability, like so many people in the favorability polls like the people, but they won't vote for them during elections, and so that's kind of weird. So all right, so the people I also like in the Democratic Party are Van Hollen. I like Hochul. I like Pritzker, and I guess I like Gavin Newsom. And those are kind of the main ones that I like. I'm a little iffy on Warren because of what she did to Bernie, in the middle while he was running, and she never endorsed him when she was for taxing the rich, and everybody else was not for taxing the rich. So it's like you gobbled up people that were for those votes that want to do like a tax the very tip top of the country, and then you steered them away from Bernie, and then you played neutral or whatever. So that was kind of weird. And so I don't really trust Warren in that capacity, even though I kind of like her otherwise, but I have it's a trust factor with Warren. And so, let's see what else. Yeah, that's the people I like in the Democratic Party. Pritzker, Van Hollen, Hochul. I like Gillibrand. I think it's Gillibrand or Gillibrand. And Gavin Newsom. And so, yeah. All right. The Knicks beat the Celtics in the second round, and then they lost in the conference finals. And I saw a banner. I thought it was a funny banner that said New York Knicks, like a hang up banner, and it said beat the injured Boston Celtics in the second round. And I thought that was funny. So sorry to Knicks fans for rubbing it in, but it was funny. They were funny the way they were celebrating after every victory, even when they were down 3-2. They celebrated like they won the whole thing in the streets. Uh, yeah. Joni Ernst. Okay, so like Joni Ernst, if you don't know, she's a senator or governor, I think. I can't remember what. She's an elected official in Iowa, statewide office, and she stated that in response to somebody questioning, that basically stating that people are going to die, and the person didn't say if people are kicked out of healthcare, they're going to die earlier than they would have. They're going to die. And her response was, well, we all die. And so I guess that's the Republican plan for the country. Well, we all die, so we don't need to prolong life with medication, and you don't need health care because you're going to die anyways. I mean, that's so bankrupt to have that ideation in a governing office. And you know it's really crazy or whatever. And so So then she doubled down on it, and she came out a couple days later, and she went to a cemetery. Okay, it's like a sick person. She goes to a cemetery, and she says, "I'm so." She doubles down and she brazenly makes fun of people that didn't, who she said didn't realize they were gonna die and everything. And so it's really sick because there are people that are gonna die earlier than they would have because they don't receive medical care, and you know, or they're gonna die prematurely. And so she's basically just saying like she doesn't care, and she's pretending that she doesn't understand what people are talking about. And so she's playing like stupid or something, and you don't belong in elected office, lady. Okay, and it's total crap what she did. So, uh, yeah, all right. And in any event, I have been reading. I'm gonna buy a book by a guy named Dr. Ian Pearson, and I think he's from the UK. And he claims that by 2050, there's going to be technology available to the masses in which we will basically end mortality, death as we know it. He said. So I don't know what that means or whatever, but I'm gonna read his book, and I have been reading about like things like there's Peter Thiel, I think is his name, who is like the PayPal guy, is part of the Trump thing, and he wants to cheat death. He has a whole thing. Google has a whole company, I think, devoted to cheating death, and it's kind of interesting. Like immortality could possibly happen. You hear about 3D organs, nanobot technology, bioelectricity technology, and regeneration. They've done experiments on mice to regrow limbs and stuff like that, and it's just regenerative DNA manipulation and stuff. And there's a lot of scientific discoveries going on, and I think there's probably a lot that's gone on in the classified world or behind the scenes or secretly. And this is just what we know about publicly. So, I guess some people could possibly be already, I mean, you have to think of the possibility that some people already have an ability to cheat mortality. Sorry, my eye is really messed up right now. All right, so in Dr. Stephen Greer's book, he, I'm gonna have to stop because I have something in my eye, and I gotta stop today early. So I apologize. No, I think I could go. I gotta stop. Okay, thank you. I'm sorry for having to stop early at 13 minutes instead of 15 minutes. Hope everyone has a good week, and sorry about this the video. Okay, goodbye.